Okay, welcome everyone to the second session in our Road to COP28 webinar series. My name is Maria. I'm part of the GYCAF programs team, and I have with me Chimdindu Love, who is also part of the programs team. Today we have three amazing guests with us. We have Amanullah Porag, Farzana Jumu, and Rahim Niang, and they're both all going to be talking about something that is close and dear to the hearts of all young people out there, which is climate justice. So without further ado, I'm going to invite Love to please go ahead and make the introductions, and we'll give each guest an opportunity to expand a little bit more about what they do.
Okay, so thank you, Maria. So I'll basically be doing the introduction just to lay a background on what we're going to be talking about today. And today the focus is on climate justice. We're going to be addressing some of the inequalities in the climate crisis. And the reason why we're looking at this is because as part of GYCAP's capacity building efforts. So what we do is that we try to provide this platform where we get knowledge sharing from young advocates like you. Um, it's just sort of a preparation of the series to Road to COP28, and why we actually chose the theme climate justice addressing inequalities in the climate crisis is because we know that climate change is a global issue and everyone is affected, but not everyone is affected equally. So we know that some of the impacts, or most of the impacts of climate change, are usually felt by the marginalized communities or people who are vulnerable, do not have access to, I'm trying to be careful the word I use, but particularly those in low income countries and people of color. So we're trying to address some of these inequalities to ensure that these vulnerable communities they actually do participate or have a say in the decision making processes. And I'm not sure, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, and to also ensure that this burden or it's being addressed. So that's what our focus here is going to be on. So at the end of this session, we're hoping that we're able to provide an understanding of what the concept of climate justice is, and we try to highlight some of the impacts of climate change on marginalized communities, and then we're going to also be looking at providing practical tools and strategies for individuals and organizations to be able to take actions on climate justice. Maria, if you don't mind, would you like to introduce the guest speakers?
Yes, so I'm going to just do a quick one and then have them introduce themselves also. So we'll start with Farzana. So Farzana Jumu is a climate activist from Fridays for Future, Bangladesh. She is a youth currently living in Dhaka, Bangladesh, and she's also the co-founder of Kath Pencil, an organization for teaching underprivileged children within her area. And her journey against the climate crisis started way back in 2017. She joined Fridays for Future in Bangladesh in 2019, and she will probably tell us what that story was like and how she got involved in that. And she's currently a youth advocate of UNICEF Bangladesh. She also coordinates Fridays for Future MAPA, which is the most affected people and areas, and Fridays for Future International. So I will give her a moment to introduce herself, and then we will introduce Amanala and then Birahim. So Farzana, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the awesome introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm Farzana, a climate justice activist from Dhaka, Bangladesh. So, being an activist from Dhaka, this is what I understand or believe, that it is a responsibility for me, or like not a choice, because I can't choose to be like not vocal when I see that my people are being affected. And as you are talking about that not everyone is being affected equally, and for my people I have seen it firsthand that some of us are not like equally affected. For example, I consider myself privileged because I have proper education, I have a roof in my head, I could go to school and things like that. But this is literally the basic needs, and when I talk to my friends around the world, because also like privileged to know English, then I realized that I'm also being affected in my own community because I live in the most polluted cities, which is Dhaka. And so okay, it is also somehow related to the climate crisis. And so then there is a level of like privilege and level of effect. And if I am like, I myself consider myself a privilege, so you can understand that there are people who is even more privileged than me, and there are people who doesn't even have the like common basic needs of getting education, getting food, or like having a roof in their heads. So that's why I am doing my activism. I'm also the UNICEF youth advocate, which means I work with UNICEF to I'll talk about the children's right in children's right and climate situation of Bangladesh, and how it is affecting like Bangladeshi's children. But I'm also like with Fridays for Future, which is a movement, and the movement is trying to build this narrative of climate justice. And Fridays for Future is not like, it's a collective. So youth from very different perspective coming together to build this narrative of climate justice, where we don't want anyone to be left behind. We want this system to be changed, because within this system where capitalism is trying to make a profit out of our misery, we can't actually go and get something new which will be good for everyone. So we just don't talk about climate, we also talk about everything which can actually increase the climate crisis. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you so much, Farzana, for that background intro about yourself. I'm sure we're going to learn a lot from you, and especially in the area that you're working in. So we're also going to introduce Amanula Porag. Forgive me for the wrong pronunciation. And he is a 23-year-old climate rights activist, also from Bangladesh, who is currently pursuing his bachelor's degree in environment and development studies from United International University in Bangladesh. Porag has been extensively working to ensure climate justice in his country and also globally. He's currently working as a core member of the Asian Youth Empowerment for COP, and he will probably tell us more about that. And he's also worked for 350.org in Bangladesh as the associate country coordinator. Before that, he worked as a campaign coordinator for Mock COP, and he focuses a lot on climate education, a just transition, and meaningful youth engagement as tools you can use to pursue climate justice. Porag also believes young people have the power to ensure a just world where everyone has their human rights ensured. So, Porag, if I've missed anything, please go ahead and take the floor.
Thank you, Maria. That was a lovely introduction, I must say. So, to add some more, my name is Parag and I'm from Bangladesh. And to give some background, I came into climate activism for, I must say, it was a very selfish reason. I came to climate activism because when I got to know about the climate crisis, I was really worried about myself and the people I love. Bangladesh is a country that's highly affected by climate change, and the place we used to live in, the place we currently live in, are directly affected by climate change. And I was really worried about my people, the younger ones I live with, the older people, and I thought there something must be done to make this scenario a bit better. I mean, we can't accept this damage that's constantly happening to us and do nothing. So that was my main motivation of coming to climate activism. And since then, I have been working with multiple organizations in Bangladesh and also in regional and global level. Currently, I'm working with Asian Youth Empowerment, which is an initiative of Yango, because we took this initiative because we felt like Asia is the largest region in the world, right? And Asia has the largest amount of young people living here. It has one of the largest youth led movements. But when it comes to the global processes such as, let's say, COP or DSBs, Asian youth representation has always been very underwhelming. So that's why we decided that, yeah, more Asian people needs to be in these spaces, and more Asian voices need to be in these spaces, and Asian youth must engage in these processes more meaningfully. So that's why we started Asian Youth Empowerment. Currently we have members from all the Asian countries, which is, I think, a remarkable job that we're doing. And other than that, I have also been engaged in multiple ground level actions. As I mentioned, as you mentioned, that education, I believe, can be a very powerful tool for young people to ensure climate resilience and ensure their human rights. But in my country, and not only my country, in many global south countries, we already have a lot of social issues, that such as there is hunger, there is gender injustice, and there are multiple social issues that climate change isn't very known and isn't very well accepted in these societies. And as you may know, climate crisis is a human rights crisis. So I strongly believe that if young people receive the education on these issues, and if they can educate other people, the issue of climate crisis can be solved very easily. So that's why I have also been working in promoting climate education all around the globe. From Mokop, I co-founded a project called Teach the Parents, where in this project, young people educated their parents on provided education to their parents on climate education, and we have been running this project globally, and this project has been very successful. We also ran this project called Teach the Teachers, where young people provided the education to the teachers, because we strongly believe that young people engaged meaningfully and utilized meaningfully can bring a very good change and a very positive change. So yeah, that's what I've been working on, and I believe young people in the driver's seat can definitely change this climate crisis scenario. So yeah, that's from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanoa. That was really interesting. And I think we have a really good set of speakers today, hearing their backgrounds and what they've been involved in. I'm not sure if Biraham is around, but I'll just give his introduction as well. And then we shall dive into the questions. And like I said, it's going to be more of like an interactive session. So please don't feel like you have to give the right answer. We're all here to learn from each other. And if there's anyone who is watching this who has questions, you can leave the questions in on our social media comments, and we will be sure to read them out to the guests. So Birham Papaniang is a Senegalese lawyer who specializes in international environment law and has over 5 years of experience in climate change storytelling, adaptation training, and support for business solutions. So he's also involved in education as well. And in 2020, he was awarded as the Green Ambassador at the Climate Change Africa Opportunities NGO in DRC. He currently works as the Circular Economy and Environmental Laws Working Group team member at UNEP, I believe, United Nations Environment Program, for the major group of children and youth. And he's also an active member of the Loss and Damage Youth Coalition. I believe the LDC Coalition has been doing a lot on climate justice. And if Burham, if you're able to give a little more of background about what you do, please feel free to do so. You would have to unmute your mic though, because we aren't able to hear you. Burham? Burham, you might have to connect your device to an audio, to one of the audio features so we can hear you, because we see you're unmuted, but we can't hear you still. All right. I think he's having issues with his audio. So
Maria, you're muted. We can't hear
sorry.
you.
I was saying I think we can go ahead and start the questions, and if and perhaps Burham will have sorted his audio issues along the way. So Love, over to you to ask the questions. And you might have to unmute yourself too, Love.
Sorry, I was just talking. Okay, that's fine. So I was saying that I would like to start with Quran. I'm not sure you if this has been answered already, or how would you like to describe climate justice in your own terms? And I think you answered that already because you answered why it's close to your heart and how. Okay, so I think we'll just go to the next one then. So, how does climate justice correlate to or differ from other social injustices like human rights injustice and gender inequality? I know you already said that climate justice is also human rights. Sorry, it's a human rights injustice. So, how would you like to like? How does it correlate? How is it different from other social injustices? I'm not sure if you understood my question.
Yeah, I got your question, and thank you. To me, climate justice is human rights justice. If I repeat it again, because in my country we have seen so many incidents of injustice, and all these incidents have led to human rights violation. Every one of them. For example, because of the climate crisis, Bangladesh is has the highest percentage of underage marriage in the entire South Asia. And because of climate crisis, Bangladesh has around 19 million climate migrants at this moment. And it is reported that if the climate crisis keeps going on like this, within 2050, 25% people of the entire country will be climate migrant. And let me remind you, Bangladesh has a huge population. At this moment, Bangladesh has around 170 million people. So 25% of 170 million people, that's a huge number. And such a huge number turning into climate migrants just because of the crisis we are facing, it directly violates multiple human rights. For example, the people who are turning into migrants, the children who are turning into migrants, they are losing their access to education, they are losing their access to clean water, let alone proper food and proper shelter. So this is climate injustice for me. And I believe if we are able to ensure all these human rights issues for these children, for the young girls who are being married off at such an early age just because their parents can't provide them food because their parents lost their lands due to flooding and due to river erosion, and all these happen because of the climate crisis we're in right now. So I believe if we are able to ensure these human rights, that's climate justice for me. Climate justice is a very cross-cutting issue in my eyes, and Without human rights, there can't be any climate justice. And I think that's the beauty of climate justice. Climate justice doesn't only talk about climate change and just pollution or any one specific issue. Climate justice ensures that we include all the social issues, all the humanitarian issues in this theme as well. Climate justice, to me, says that if we want to ensure climate justice, we have to ensure other forms of justice as well. We have to ensure social justice, we have to ensure gender justice, we have to ensure racial justice. So that's climate justice for me. In a word, climate justice to me means we have all our rights ensured, all our people are getting fair and equal treatments, and my country is not being only vulnerable, and my country is receiving the support and the resources it needs to fight back. And not only my country, all the countries in the world who are vulnerable, when they all receive the proper support and proper resources to fight back against this crisis, that's climate justice for me. I don't know if I was too quick, but yeah, that's my answer.
No, I don't think you were too quick. I think you were just right on point, and you answered that very well. And so basically, what I understand is that you cannot totally separate climate justice from the human rights injustice and the gender inequality that's going on. They are all correlated. Yeah. I don't know if Farouk, is that okay? Can I call you Farouk? Jumo?
Am I audible?
Yes. Would you want to
Okay.
comment on that?
Yes, you can call me Farzana or Jumo. Farooq is actually my father's name. So,
Okay. Okay. My apologies.
okay.
Again, repeat the question.
Um, the same question as Farooq's, right?
Yeah.
Yes, so for me, what Parag just said is absolutely right. I see climate justice is about justice for all. So, but if you also are talking about like how it is different than other justice, I won't say other justice, but I will say other justice movement. So when we see injustice, we ask for justice, and there are some difference in other movement and climate movement. And how I see it is when we start talking about climate justice, it's often in very like multiple layers that oftentimes people doesn't even understand. And for example, if I'm talking about water is a human rights, people understand, so it's a human rights violation if there is no water. But it can be also related to climate injustice, because you and me are getting drinking water, but people in my country have to walk 2 miles per day just to get drinking water. And even then, this has been privatized, and people are selling this water. So this is like injustice. It's a climate injustice, but often the people doesn't understand this is a climate injustice. So when we talk about we want climate justice, they think we are talking about nature, which we obviously are. But it is more than just the environment, just the nature. It's also about intersectionality and how it is connecting one injustices to another. And this is not only like if we are talking about human rights, if we're talking about children's, women, but it's also about the money flow. So when we talk about like how rich and poor people get differentiated, it is actually being designed and made and amplified by climate injustice. And when we talk about like money, oftentimes people say, oh, this is not a climate issue, but it is. And I see that oftentimes it's really hard to communicate climate justice without like bringing other thing. But at the same time, people doesn't understand that everything can be so interrelated. And when we actually ask for climate justice, we actually ask for all other injustice to be resolved.
Ibrahim, I think you're speaking, but we can't hear anything you're saying. I think the network is really bad, so it's breaking up. You could actually type, you could type some of them in the comments so that we can respond to you because we can't hear.
Birham, if you could mute your mic because we can't hear you and we're getting some bad feedback. Okay, all right. I think
Hello, can you hear me now?
yeah.
Um, can you hear me? Okay, no problem.
All right. I think we might have to move on to the next question while he sorts it out. Yeah.
Yeah, Maria, do you want to go ahead? Do you want me to go ahead? We can hear you.
All right. Yes. So sorry about that. We were talking about climate justice and how it correlates and the intersectionalities. And I think that both of you spoke about something really important, which is that you cannot separate the two from, you cannot separate climate injustice from other forms of injustices. So I wanted to follow up on that, especially from the gender lens perspective, and ask the both of you, how does climate justice affect the gender aspect of it? What are the challenges you faced in that regard? And what solutions or possible solutions could you propose to solve it? And we could start with you, Amanullah, and then Farzan, you can jump in.
Thank you. I think that's a very valid point to raise. Again, if I talk about my country's perspective, and not only my country's perspective, the entire South Asia's perspective, you may know that gender inequality has been in this region for a long time now. Even though the scenario is turning more positive, but still there are a lot of gender equalities in this entire region, especially when it comes to gender diversified people. In my country, at this moment, there are 500,000 people who are gender diversified, and there are 5,000 people who are gender diversified, and the worst part of their daily life is they aren't yet recognized. I mean, the governments in South Asia haven't yet recognized gender diversified people very well, and that scenario is far worse in my country. So these people are already in a very vulnerable position socially, and over on the top of this social vulnerability, there is this climate crisis. I mean, the normal people in my country are suffering very badly. And when it comes to someone who already has social vulnerabilities, I mean, their life just turns into hell. Just like I mentioned in my previous answer, Bangladesh has the highest percentage of early age marriage in the entire region. And among the 19 million climate migrants, a huge part of that entire population is women and young girls who are suffering in a much harder way. If you go to our coastal region, you will see the scarcity of drinking water and fresh water. And these girls and these young women can't access water when they're in need, and that just increases their vulnerability to this climate crisis, and when they move to a different place because they have been forced to migrate from their homeland, they all, all of a sudden come to a very new place which they are not very comfortable in, and which and a space that doesn't properly provide them the support they need to survive. And this only gets worse when Bangladesh is going through the hard times. For example, Bangladesh has a lot of extreme weather events, and amid these events, young women and older women are the ones who are the most vulnerable, and because they don't have the resources and they don't have the support to get themselves through that extreme weather event. And another very alarming thing which I feel is women in general are very vulnerable in climate crisis, because it is very sad to say, but we still live in a society that's to some extent male dominated, and the needs of women are often overlooked. But it is very true that in this climate crisis, women are the ones that need more support to survive, because there are because they have been living in a society that hasn't heard of their needs very well. So I believe climate crisis only increases when you overlook the needs of women and the support they need, and not only women, and people from the gender diversified groups as well, because just like I mentioned, they aren't yet recognized very well socially. And I mean, this social vulnerability, climate crisis only increases their vulnerability. So I believe it is very important that we listen to their needs, we give them the identification they need, and we give them the support they need to survive in this crisis. Yeah.
Thank you, Amanula. And Farzana, do you have anything more to add? I know you're a woman and you're also a woman of color. So I think that's also something that we miss a lot, and that we don't talk about is the injustices that women face, but also women of color face in the fight for climate justice is also amplified much more. And to Amanula's point, yes, we see that a lot of um, well, I should say men or people of the opposite gender have more of the ability to fight because they have more resources, whereas the female population doesn't have um, similar resources or access to similar resources to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is a really like this is a question I really relate to. No, this is not only because I'm a woman or woman of color, but also I work with UN Women in the Feminist Action for Climate Justice Coalition. So then I actually get to know like what's in policy and what's in like in community, and I can see the like gap in both spaces, which is really not very a good example to give. um, but if I'm like uh, if I talk from the point Parag actually couldn't or didn't talk about is, first of all, what he said is really really important. In Bangladesh we don't see this gender equality at all, but also what we need to recognize that the woman who is in local community, who is in like climate vulnerable areas, they are also working women, so they actually have to work for a very long time in saline water because of the uh, uh, global temperature rising and sea level rising. So when they are working on the saline water, they have some reproductive health issue, and there are reports on that saying that people have to like um, do some operation to like even cut down their reproductive system because of like this salinity. And but we never consider their work as the work. So when they are working and for that they are actually suffering, we don't give them enough recognition. And the another thing which I really wanted to mention is the recognition of uh, like the work they're doing. Because when we are seeing the migration happening, men are the one who migrate first because they wanna earn the money. And this is very valid in the context that the men actually had to migrate first, but they leave the woman behind to suffer in the like extreme weather or like extreme situation they're dealing. And those women are the one who is finding out the adaptive solution. So Bangladesh is for Bangladesh champion of local led adaptive solution, and this solution is being created, is being like innovated by the women of those areas. And oftentimes when we talk about it, we don't talk about, like when we talk about local led adaptation, we never actually bring the role of woman. So when there is no recognition of a work or like promotion of a solution, because it is like uh, done by women of colors, then we can't actually bring the solution to the global level. And with the amount of gender violence we are facing in our country, this is even harder. So this is like the problem, but at the same time what the solution is within us. Because I see women from my community as warrior. They are not just vulnerable, they're resilient, and they're one of some of the most resilient people I know. So they already have the solution. I feel like if we can work more on bringing those solution to the table and like giving enough recognition, giving them enough resource to work on that. And then educating is obviously one of the big issue. If we can educate them, we already have the solution for climate change and for like fighting this climate catastrophes.
Thank you very much. I kind of have two follow-up questions for the both of you. And I will also let Love ask her question because it might be related to the question I have. And the questions are, you both brought up the migration situation. And I don't think that we understood exactly how huge or how serious that situation is. So, are you able to expand more about what you mean by migration? Are you having young people or women and men moving away from Bangladesh to other places? And also, another question is about the water situation. How bad is the water situation in Bangladesh compared to the general climate crisis, and why isn't there anything being done to address it? And before you answer that question, I'll allow Love to jump in and ask her question.
Yeah, so I think I should just act it together. So I was going to ask that what are the your communities that have been impacted, in what way, what's the significance of what has happened in your communities? Like if you have practical examples, that's what I was going to ask, but it seems like it's similar to what Maria has already asked. Like how have your communities been affected by climate injustice, and if you're able to share the examples that you have. We know that the unequal effects of climate change on marginalized communities, it's very obvious. We see what's happening, but we want to have like practical examples in your communities. Yeah, if you can go ahead. I think it
Should I
was
go
Paul.
first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I will try to address Maria's question first. So first of all, what you just said that how the migration situation looks like. So by 2050, there is a report saying that we in Bangladesh we will lose 17% of our whole land due to the like global emission, and then um, temperature rise and water like level rising. So if the water level is rising, a lot of our land goes underwater. And then also because of our geographical position, we are like at least 17 district of ours is directly connected to the sea. So when water level is rising, this sea water, which is salted water, comes in our land. And when it comes in our land, it not only goes into our drinking water, it goes into our fields. So there is no longer field to cultivate food. But these areas are were supposed to be very like fertile, and that's why the people from there are basically farmer. So now the farmers are losing their land, their drinking water, and then also like we are facing floods almost like every year. So each time there are floods, there are new water coming inside. And there with like floods water, there are like diseases coming inside. So these people from the coastal area have no other option to migrate to another like city. And as the like the economic situation is not all similar in all big cities, they come to the capital cities. So now the capital city, which have like capacity of having 10 million people, have 40 million people there. So it's like almost four time. And when this many people is in a certain place, and the people who have to migrate, they lose all resources when they migrate internally. So they have to sit. I'm really sorry about the background noise. uh, so they have to come and sit, they have to come and live in a slum where there is no like water supply, proper water supply, there's no proper electricity supply, there's no proper hygiene issue, because this is not like a proper place to live. This is slums people are making. So they are already living in a bad condition. And when they are internally migrating, they are not like considered as migrants like others. So they don't get any support as a migrant. That's why their life never get improved. So this is like the migration situation. And then about the like what answer you had, what's the other question you had? I'm really sorry. Also about the like salinity in the land, which I already kind of like mentioned. Parag, do you wanna go for the next part?
Yeah, I guess I have something to add on Maria's question as well. As you may already know, Bangladesh is called the land of rivers, right? I mean, in theory, we have 700 rivers scattered around the country. But among those 700, only 150, merely 170 rivers are still alive. I mean, they still have water flow in them. So, a land that which used to be called a land of rivers, the people of that land aren't getting fresh water because rivers are the main source of our fresh water. And regarding the salinity issue, I want to share a story with you that I recently encountered. So in our societies, women are like angels. I mean, they are literally the providers. I this is coming from a place of great pride and also great sorrow. I have also seen this in my family that my mother always used to provide us first, and after we receive, let's say, food and other resources, she takes the resources at the very last. She makes sure that her children gets the best, and whatever that's left at the last, she consumes that. But in the coastal areas, what happens is there is no freshwater resource. So the communities there, they have to bring in fresh water from outside the communities. They have to buy fresh waters in them. And let me tell you, fresh water is quite expensive in Bangladesh. And as they don't have proper jobs and proper works to earn their livelihoods, they can't even afford to buy enough amount of fresh water. So the women in the families, what they do is they first provide the men and the children, and whatever that's left at the very end, they consume that. And in most of the cases, there aren't anything left at the end. So the women have to consume saline water. Just like Farzana mentioned in her last answer, women in our coastal region are facing severe reproductive issues due to the excessive use of salinity intruded water. There are multiple cases of women getting operations and they have to cut off their reproductive system. This is a real thing in Bangladesh, that women have to cut off their reproductive system. So that's the water issue in our country. And when it comes to the capital city Dhaka, there are around 8 rivers in Dhaka. All of them are dead. None of the rivers have waters which are usable. And on the contrary, using these water might cause a lot of severe health issues. Let me tell you, these were rivers which were full of life. These rivers used to flow like mad, and these were one of the largest rivers in the country. But now all of these rivers are dead, and these rivers have become dumping grounds, to be very honest. If you come to Dhaka and you see the main river of Dhaka, which is the Buriganga, you can't see the water because it's completely black. You can't go near the river because it stinks, and God forbid if you drink that water. I don't want to say what will happen if you drink that water. And when it comes to affecting communities, the number of climate migrants in our country is just increasing day by day. And the worst part is they aren't registered migrants. I mean, the government doesn't recognize them as migrants. They're just people, to the government, they're just people who are moving from one place to another. But the government and the authorities don't see why they are moving. So there might be families who have lost their land due to river erosion, who have lost their homes due to floods and due to storm surges. They are moving into other cities, and the government isn't providing them any support because that family doesn't have the certificate or the documentation that says they are migrants. So they are receiving no support from the government or from supporting bodies. And when they come to the city or when they move to another place, they lose 3 things. They lose their shelter, their children lose their access to education, and they lose access to food. And as a result, the children also start working. The children, they have dropped out of schools when they moved, and now what they're doing is they're going into odd jobs. But in Bangladesh, child labor is a huge industry because don't have to pay equal to a children. You can pay them way less and get them the work. They will do the work. I mean, child labors are even in the most hazardous industries. For example, they're in the chemical industry, they're in the pharmaceuticals industry, they're in the waste picking industry. Children are working in the most dangerous aspects of the society and most dangerous workspaces. And that's how our communities are being affected by climate change and this climate crisis. And just like Farzana mentioned, it is a matter of great pride that Bangladesh used to be the champion of adaptation, but I must say that isn't the scene at the moment because we have reached a limit where we can't adapt anymore. Adaptation has a certain limit, right? After that, you can't adapt anymore. You become helpless. Many communities in our country are becoming helpless and they're moving to different places and they have no guarantee of a future. Their children have no rights. Their children know if their children has a tomorrow where the children will wake up and get food 3 times a day. That's how the climate crisis is affecting our communities.
Wow. Thank you so much for that explosive description of what's going on. I think we all appreciate how you've been able to, how the both of you have been able to describe the situation. And this helps us understand that indeed climate injustice is cutting. So it goes even into your health, the health situation, the social situation, political situation. And if you don't address it, then you're not addressing all the other issues. And I have a deeper appreciation for now when young people say that they want climate justice. I think what's important is for everyone to understand what is climate justice, because they want to um what's the word, like segregate and put it in one box, but you can't box it up because it's everywhere. And I think if everyone understands what climate justice is, we probably will have a more supportive system, both globally and on the local level, to address this issue. Love, are there any other comments you want to add to this very explosive discussion?
No, my first reaction was actually wow. Like, it's good that we have this kind of conversations so you can see what's happening in the other side of the world, and that climate injustice is actually an issue, and it's very deep into the most vulnerable people. I mean, look at the examples of the kids and what's going on, right? So, except we have forums like this where we can bring these things to light and talk about them, we really don't know what's going on at the grassroots level. So, thank you so much for the explosive, descriptions and the examples that you gave. Um, Mara, do you have any more questions for me?
Yes. So moving away from the community and local level challenges that you see, could you, both of you, and we will start with you, Farzana, give us examples of personal challenges that you have faced in your fight for climate justice? What are those challenges that you have faced, and how have you addressed them? Have you found solutions? What have been some of the tools that you have used in your journey?
Okay, thank you so much for the question. So, uh, like having challenge is very common in every work we do. So, uh, I had some challenge for sure, but I just wanna address some of like some of the challenges I may not needed to face, but I did. One, I will say, being a climate activist in Bangladesh, being a woman climate activist in Bangladesh is not always being taken very seriously. Mm, like when I was like talking with people, especially the politicians, and I get this idea, oh, young people doesn't know anything, and you don't know how all this politics work, how all this negotiation work. But to be honest, I have been in negotiation spaces. I have been following like what's going on for each and every track, maybe not each and every track, but um, I have been following the track I am interested, like mitigation and like adaptation, and I have like tried to follow around the whole of thing. I have been a youth advocate for UNICEF, so I have been following anything anything and everything related to children's right, and I have enough knowledge, but they are like, oh, you are youth, you don't have enough knowledge, youth doesn't know enough. This is one I think all of us as a youth have faced somewhere. And then there is like some security issues. Being an activist is like, when we talk about climate, because in Bangladesh, people may not know what climate justice is, people may not know what like all these fancy words like mitigation, adaptation, or like loss and damage is, but people are seeing it every day, so there is no way people are not knowing that what's going on. But at the same time, if you are trying to build it in a base of justice, you want to build it in a base of how exploitation, colonialism, or capitalism is root cause of climate justice, people will see you very differently. Then they will know that you are a threat, and they will try to uh, like shut you down in different ways. So we have friends and colleagues who got threatened by government official, who got threatened by like companies and power plants owner. So this is the cases we face in Bangladesh. And then there is another very different perspective in within the climate movement, that when we started like climate activism, it was more Eurocentric narrative. So there was so much idea of this is a future problem we need to solve. And when we tried to shift this narrative, it wasn't really easy. There was a lot of question that, oh, you don't understand the whole perspective of it. But understand my perspective, and my perspective is people are suffering right now, so it's not a future problem. And it was one of like a huge issue to successfully shift this narrative. And I will say we as Fridays for Future and the other youth movement have really come really far with this, where now we talk about most affected people and areas, mapas, that they are the front liner and they already have the solution. So yeah, this is some of the problem I face. And I think if I'm also talking about how I deal with it, I will say that the climate movement gives me a community, which actually gives me hope, which actually gives me the idea that I need to go into my community to find out what's going on. And then whenever I feel like I'm hopeless, I think about all those women in southern part of my country fighting every day, being the most resilient people I know. And if they can do it with my privileges, it is my responsibility, which I can't just go against. And that's what actually keeps me moving.
Yes, thank you so much, Farzana. And Amanula, what are some of the same question applies to you? What are some of the challenges you faced at an individual level, and how have you dealt with them?
Uh, I must say, the first and the foremost challenge that I faced when I came into climate activism is the lack of knowledge and education. Because climate change, you, if you see our books, textbooks, not only from Bangladesh's textbooks, the entire Asia region's textbooks, you won't find adequate information about climate change and the challenges that bring comes with climate change. So when I first came into activism, I had to do a lot of studies outside my school. I came into activism when I was in school. I was 16 or maybe 17, so I had to study a lot. I won't say that was a bad thing, that really helped me, but I think it is an issue for a country that's highly vulnerable. There should be enough information about climate change in the books, in the textbooks. So that's one. And second challenge I must say I faced is the tokenism. That's the elephant in the room. Older people in front of you will praise you a lot, they will say a lot of good things, but right after they turn their back on you, they will forget about you, they will forget about the things they have talked to you, the promises they have made, they will completely ignore those and they will just go on with their own lives. That's another major challenge I feel like not only me, many youth activists face in this space. Because yeah, we can do a lot, still they are the people with power, right? They are the ones who hold the legislative power, who hold the government. So if they make fake promises, if they only talk to young people just to showcase and just to click the tick box that yeah, we have included youth, that's a major problem. And another very serious issue that I feel like there is, sorry, I was just thinking about, is another very serious issue is that whenever you are in the same room with older people will say you young people will do this, young people should do this, as if the climate change is our responsibility and we're the ones causing climate change. I think that is where our older generations have failed us. They couldn't execute their roles properly, and now they're trying to put their burden on us. just imagine, in an ideal world, I wouldn't have to be a climate activist. I can just be a young person living my life happily. In an ideal world, Farzana wouldn't have to be out there fighting for climate justice. But sadly, we don't live in an ideal world. Our peers, our elder generations, the people in power, they couldn't play their roles very effectively. And now they're trying to put all their responsibilities, all their burdens on young people's head, young people's shoulders. And I think that's a very big challenge that we face. People expect a lot from young people. We are already doing a lot. We are doing more, a lot more than we should do. Still, there are a lot of expectations from young people that, yeah, young people will do this, young people will do that, young people will change the world. Yeah, of course, young people will change the world. But that doesn't mean other stakeholders don't have to play their roles. Climate crisis is a fight that has to be fought with all the stakeholders in the same room. You can't just praise young people and then say, yeah, we have heard young people, we have brought in young people in the room, and then not listen to the young people's words or not listen to that young person's voice. That's a very big challenge that especially happens in the global south countries. The leaders, they make a lot of promises to the young people, but they don't listen to them. That's another challenge I feel like I have faced, Farzana have faced, and everyone out there fighting for climate change have faced. And when it comes to fighting against these challenges, the first and the foremost thing I did was I educated myself. Whenever I'm in a room with policymakers or polluters, I never give them the space to question me or question my livelihood. I have shaped myself in a way that the polluters can't question me, the government can't put their fingers on me. I have shaped myself and the young people I work with in a way that they can do the right questions, and when they are questioned, they can provide the right answers. That's my way of writing. And another thing is the community Farzana talked about. Yeah, the climate space is a beautiful community, and I think this is the best part I have in this climate activism. I work with people who are like-minded, who understands what I am feeling and I understand what they are feeling. We have this sense of unity, this sense of brotherhood and sisterhood, that yes, we are one family, we are one team, and whatever happens, we will fight against it together. And that's my way of fighting the challenges I have been facing.
Thank you very much. You both gave very unexpected answers, but really refreshing answers from what we've been hearing previously. So, thank you so much for giving those answers. I was totally expecting something else, but you opened up my mind to a different picture and perspective of the different challenges that young people face. So, as we are winding down, I want to move us towards the upcoming COP28 session because I know you are both involved in policy and lobbying for policy. So the question is really simple, is what are you expecting at COP28, and specifically for climate justice? What are your hopes for the negotiations coming ahead? What do you wish for? And then we will also be a little selfish and ask from our organization side, how do you think the Global Youth Climate Action Fund can be more aligned with the climate justice movement? And Farzana, I'll give the floor to you, and then we'll move over to Amanullah, and then we shall do closing remarks.
Thank you, Maria. This is really interesting question because I am following COP and expecting to be there, and I think for me personally, because I'm following negotiation on mitigation tracks, and it was really heartbreaking to see that we are not even trying to talk about mitigation anymore. We want 1.5 degree target to be alive, and for that we need to talk more about mitigation. So first of all, I am expecting mitigation to be in the agenda for the whole COP, and we need to talk more about like what's going on around mitigation, and how can this funding can be moved around. And another thing I will really interested to be to follow is just transition track, and how actually uh, COP wanna work on just transition, especially for workers, especially for the people of communities who may lose their land if just transition track is not on track. So this is two very important thing I am gonna follow, and all I always try to follow the gender negotiation happening. So it will be also interesting track to see. And for you to support more, I think what you can do is first to uh, when you want to support young people, talk to young people that what their need is. For example, if you are asking me what I am expecting for you, I will say that when you are giving the funding, please check if this is aligned with a justice perspective. The project is, it is contributing to justice, and
I think we lost her. It's probably her network. Okay, she'll probably come back, so I will jump over to you, Amanula, while we wait for her to come back.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So, uh, for COP28, I must say I don't have very big expectations, to be honest, because mm, the agenda, if you see the agenda, they may say it's going to be the most inclusive COP of all the COPs, but if you see the agenda, there isn't very big issues for the global south that will be discussed. For example, you may know about the ACE implementation plan, right? The 4-year ACE implementation plan that was taken in COP27. And they have taken up an implementation plan, but they have no fundings allocated. I mean, if you don't have money, how do you expect people to implement that plan, right? So I really want to see what they discuss about the ACE implementation plan this year, and also the energy issues. And another thing that I have noticed is they don't have adaptation in the agenda this year. So I'm really worried to know their thoughts and what they're thinking on adaptation. And as a young person, I strongly believe in meaningful youth engagement. I am also engaged with Children and Youth Pavilion of COP28. I'm in the steering committee of the pavilions. Steering. I'm one of the steering committee members of the pavilion. So I really want to see how they engage young people in this year's COP. We have heard that there will be around 80,000 people attending this year's COP, which is a huge number. And I want to see how many young people are there and how do they plan to engage young people in these processes. For example, last year at Egypt, we did not have the permission to organize demonstrations or strikes. It was a very restricted space, I must say. And I really want to see how they open up this year's space for young people and how much freedom do they provide to young people to do actions that they feel like is right. So that is one of the things I'll be following. And also, I want to see what decisions that comes on the loss and damage reparations fund. They announced the fund in November in as a part of Sharm el Sheikh implementation plan, but it has been 8 months and there has been only 2 meetings of the transitional committee. So which is a very slow progress. And I really want to see what they do and what they talk about the loss and damage fund and loss and damage reparations at Dubai. So these are the points I'll be following. And when it comes to Global Youth Climate Action Fund, first of all, you guys are doing a great job and keep doing whatever you're doing. And when it comes to providing support to young people, I will really request you to be not like the other organizations. What happens in our country when we want to work with development partners, we need to provide a lot of documents. We need to provide different types of organizational policies. We need to provide audits and this and that, which makes our work much harder. So I would strongly request you to be not like that and make yourselves flexible for young people. Young people, we are not professionals, and as a matter of fact, we don't even need to be professionals. We are young people who are getting out of their comfort zone to do something which is not properly our responsibility, but we're still doing it because we care. So it would be a strong request to you guys as well that you also provide the same care to young people and don't make your support mechanism very congested and very difficult for young people to access. Make yourself open to more young people and more regions, and make sure that young people get the support that they feel like they need from you. Yeah, and also on a last note, collaborate with a lot more youth organizations, not only from the international space, but also from the national spaces as well, from different countries, from different local perspectives. Collaborate with collaborate and provide support to a lot of local organizations as well. So yeah, that's I think would be my request to Global Youth Climate Action Fund.
Thank you, Amanullah. Farzana, did you want to complete your train of thought because you cut off before you were able to complete it?
Yeah, actually, the thing I wanted to say is covered by Parag, so that's what I wanted to say, Joseph.
All right, Chimdindu, do you have any last words before we do closing remarks? Okay, she says no. I think she's been enjoying the conversation. So have I. We really appreciate having the both of you on the session today. We have learned a lot, and like I said earlier, this recording is actually available on all our social media platforms. I think when other, well, the general public views the or listens to and watches this session, they are going to have a better perspective and understanding of what is climate justice and how can we work together to address it. I want to thank you both, Amanullah and Farzana, for your recommendations to the GYCAF. We really take it seriously, and you'll be happy to know that yes, indeed, we don't require a lot of documentation for our funding. Even though we do offer small micro grants, we have, because we have been active on the grassroots level, we do understand that yes, it is indeed extremely difficult for young people to have audits and financial reports and all that stuff. So we try to ensure that we aren't letting that be an impediment for young people to access funding. So, with that said, I want to thank you all again, and maybe invite you to say a few last words before we end this broadcast. So, Farzana, if you want to start, you can go ahead, and then Amanullah, and we will call it a session.
Thank you so much. To finish this, I will ask everyone to join on your capacity to bring climate justice, even if you don't want to call it climate justice. Whatever justice work, whatever rights and whatever skills you have can be used and can be like be in the space to ask for climate justice. And we really need each and every one, because the problem is has no border, problem has no gender, problem, and this problem has no race. So let's all work together to solve the climate crisis.
And if I want to say, I say to all the young people I work with, young people have been doing an extremely good job fighting for climate justice, but in doing so, sometimes we forget to take care of ourselves. So this is my humble request to all the youth climate activists and all the youth activists all around the globe who are fighting for justice, any type of justice. It can be climate justice, it can be social justice. Please make sure to take care of yourself, and please make sure to take care of your community. If you aren't well, the community is not well. If you aren't taking care of yourself, the community will suffer, because it's your protection that's the most important when you are in this space. So make sure to protect yourself, to safeguard yourself, and make sure to take care of yourselves and your loved ones. And yeah, let's join hands to fight for a better world. Thank you.
I could not have said it better. All right. Thanks once again. And we want to wish you all the very best in your fight. And hopefully, our paths will cross somewhere down the line or during COP. And we just want to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. Thank you and have a good one.
Thank you.
And also thank you to you
Thank you.
guys for inviting us. It's been a lovely session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much.